Evening. I'm going to read something that showed up, and I don't really like where the article is leading. It's called Raising the American Weakling, and it's by Tom Vanderbilt. There are two, I'm just going to read it. And I got this hat on because I ain't got no outfit on. I just want to yeah. Raising the American Weakling. There are two very different interpretations of our dwindling grip strength. When she was practicing occupational therapist, Elizabeth Fain started noticing something odd in her clinic. Her patients were weak, more specifically, their grip strengths, recorded via a handheld dynamometer, were not anywhere close to the norms that had been established back in the 1980s. Fain knew that physical activity levels and hand use patterns had changed a lot since then. Jobs had become increasingly automated. The professional and service sectors had grown. All sorts of measures of physical activity, like the likelihood that a child walks to school, had declined, and the personal computer age had dawned. But to see the numbers decline so steeply and quickly was still a surprise, and not just to her. Early strength, a set of experiments in the late 1800s, showed that most infants are able to hang on a suspended stick. Unlike most findings in the sleepy field of occupational therapy, her findings, which were published last year in the Journal of Hand Therapy, touched off a media firestorm, as the revelation seemed to encapsulate any number of smoldering fears in one handy conflagration. The loss of human potential in the face of automation, of our increasing time spent on smartphones and other devices, the erosion of our masculine norms, of the fragility and general shiftlessness of millennials. Even taking into account the cautionary statistical notes that the sample sizes of the 1980s studies were not huge, that Fain's study was mostly college students, the idea of a loss in human strength expressed through a statistical measure hardly anyone had previously heard of seemed to hint at some latter-day version of degeneration. I'm reading something that's going to be put in my podcast, and it's really interesting. That message was reinforced by the sheer predictive power of your grip strength. In a study published in 2015, The Lancet, the health outcomes of nearly 140,000 people across 17 countries were tracked over 4 years via a variety of measures, including grip strength. Grip strength was not only inversely associated with all-cause mortality, every 5 kilograms decrement in grip strength was associated with a 17% risk increase. But as the team led by McMaster University, Professor of Medicine Daryl Leong noted, the grip strength was a stronger predictor of all-cause and cardiovascular mortality than systolic blood pressure. You see it right here. Gripping is a part of a long story in which we have been getting weaker for millions of years. Hello, Polly Honey. I've seen people refer to it as a will to live meter, says Richard Bohannon, a professor of health studies at North Carolina's Campbell University. Grip strength, he suggests, is not necessarily an overall indicator of health, nor is it causative. If you start building your grip strength now, it does not ensure you will live longer, but it is related to important things. What's more, it's non-invasive and inexpensive to measure. Bohannon notes that in his home care practice, a grip strength test is now de rigueur. I use it in basically all of my patients, he says. It gives you an overall sense of their status. And high grip strength is better than low grip strength. The arguments seem to line up neatly. We are raising a generation of weaklings, more prone to everything from premature aging to mental disorders. Or is the opposite true? Is this just the latest step in the age-old weakening of our species as we emerged from the trees and built up civilization? Pulling up, pull-ups. You see how we used to be able to do pull-ups. I used to be able to do pull-ups when I was a teenager. As I got older, it was much harder. I can't do it now. Pound per pound, babies are remarkably strong. The parent learns this the first time they proffer their finger. In a famous series of experiments in the late 19th century, of the sort one can scarcely imagine today, Lewis Robinson, a surgeon at a children's hospital in England, tested some 60 infants, many within an hour of birth, by having them hang from a suspended walking stick. With only 2 exceptions, according to one report, the infants were able to hang on, sustaining the weight of their body for at least 10 seconds. Many could do it upward for a minute. In a later published photograph, Robinson swapped out the bar for a tree branch to bring home his whole point: our arboreal history. This idea that we are born to brachiate or swing through trees lurks behind the peculiar power of grip strength. From an evolutionary perspective, note the authors of a study in evolution and human behavior. It is interesting to ask why hand grip strength would be such an ubiquitous measure of human health and vitality. Strong hands helped keep us in the trees. In other words, alive. To this day, healthier birth weight is correlated with higher grip strength. We came down, but then our hands adapted to new uses, the sort of things that made us human. As the evolutionary biologist Mary Marzik argues, our hands today were literally shaped around millions of years of using and making tools. Our cerebral hemispheres, notes John Napier, author of the classic study Hands, expanded our tool making as our tool making it did. The human hand became an almost perfect gripping machine. That long, opposable thumb enabling what has been termed the power grip, and the precision grip looms most obvious. But consider also the papillary ridges, those tougher, thicker parts of the skin found on the human heel, but also on the human palm, a vestigial souvenir from our time as quadrupeds. Their placement, as Napier writes in Hands, corresponds with the principal areas of gripping and weight-bearing, where they serve very much the same function as the treads of an automobile tire. endocrine glands perfectly line the papillary ridge, Napier writes, providing a grip-enhancing lubrication system. This sort of frictional adaptation does not kick in until we are around 2, writes Frank Wilson in The Hand. Before then, we just grip harder. Gripping, then, is a part of our biology and evolution as a species. It's also part of the long story in which we have been getting weaker for millions of years, largely because of a decline in physical activity. The human skeleton, for example, is relatively gracile, weak, compared to hominoids. Those infants tested by Robinson stout hangers-on, though they may have been, can hardly compete with infant monkeys, who can hang on for upward of a half an hour. Why? Because they need to. Modern infants, as one researcher notes, as well as their fairly recent human antecedents, do not need to hang on with their hands and feet from the moment of birth. It's easy to be troubled by a nearly 20% decrease in grip strength, especially given that it happened in one generation. This is going to go in a podcast. In other words, our hands have changed as our environment has changed. Studies done in traditional societies have shown that correlations between grip and strength and hunting success have declined. Perhaps strength becomes less of an important detriment of hunting ability, writes one researcher. As a population undergoes acculturation, and the range of variation and skill within the population increases. In a world where one can get more done with a smartphone than a hand axe, our hands seem to be on the move, as they have always been. Witness, for example, the palmaris longus, the tendon that connects your forearm to your palm, and which becomes visible in many people when you flex your palm upward like this, let's see. When you flex your palm upward. The muscle, according to one hypothesis, was once important for the tasks like brachiation, but has been slowly declining in humans. In some cultures, some 63% of people no longer have it. As one group of researcher notes, if human evolution continues along similar lines, wherein the muscle belly, the sum of all the muscle fibers, continues to phylogenetically reduce, it is expected that this muscle will eventually not be found in humans. This inverse correlation between the grip strength and civilization has been both celebrated and debated over the centuries. Jean-Jacques Rousseau saw in civilization a weakening of all the vigor of which the human species was capable. The French explorer Francois Peron, intent on discrediting Rousseau's argument, brought an early Regnier dynamometer to Tasmania to test the strength of the savage man against his own soldiers. The more savage the people, Peron reported, contra Rousseau, the weaker they were. He took his grip strength test as a conclusive proof against the then fashionable argument that the physical degeneration of man follows the perfection of civilization. What is this? This is like doing car repair using your hands. Which is the correct interpretation of the great modern weakening? My nose is tickling on the left side. There has certainly been an across-the-board change in the usefulness of, wow, it's really tickling now. Oh, ah. The usefulness of grip strength over a short period of time, which Fain acknowledges. An auto mechanic, which would have a higher grip strength than a salesman, typically, Fain notes, but even a contemporary auto mechanic, she suspects, would have a lower grip strength than their 1985 equivalent. A lot of their tools have changed to automatic things. It's not good when my right side of my nose is tickling. I'm just telling you, it's a bad spiritual sign about where we're headed. To change a tire, they used to do that with mechanical force, but now they have an air gun to turn those nuts and bolts for them. We can even now read a pro athlete's unable to complete a single pull-up. Coincidentally, Fain grew up on a farm where manual labor was common. She jokes that no one ever wanted to thumb wrestle her brother. His hands, grown strong from milking cows, were like steel pincers. I came of age in the 1980s, so I also belonged to the norm group that posted the strong numbers in the Fain's comparison, but I am hardly the picture of a lumberjack. My days are mostly devoted to sitting at my keyboard, researching and writing articles like this one. Curious about what all that means for my own grip strength, I went and bought a Jammer hydraulic hand dynamometer, which is favored by the clinicians. You can see it right here, a hydraulic hand dynamometer. My strength ran in at nearly 62 kilograms, or kgs, is that what it means, kilograms? Which, according to a chart of a normative grip strength in the Jammer's manual, was above the mean for males, which was 45 to 49, but not hugely outside the standard deviation. In that data, my age group did worse than the 20 to 24 age group, like you'd expect. What was surprising was that my grip strength came in at 40%, above a group of contemporary male college students that Fain measured last year. She found that a group of male aged 20 to 24 ages had produced some of the peak mean grip strength scores in the 1980s test, had a mean grip strength of just 44.7 kgs, well below my own and far below the same cohort in the 1980s, whose mean was in the low 50s. There was also significant declines in the female strength. We've got a chart right here. Let me get out of this thing right here. You can see the chart. You can see what's happening. It, whatever it is, it's like boom. This is the age group. It's going down. It's easy to be troubled by a nearly 20% decrease in grip strength, especially given that it happened in one generation, a blink of an eye compared to an evolutionary time scale. But to denounce it as a sign of cultural degeneration is to try to fix culture as natural, when in reality it is as shifting as our bodies themselves. Should we decry the withering away of muscle if our bodies prosper in the environment that surrounds them? The last 10 years has also seen a dramatic increase in myopia, most likely because we spend more time indoors and because of the type of work we do. But should we stop reading? Excuse me. Should we swing from the trees to get back our strength? Even if we got our paleo hands back, what good would that do us in the modern world? As if a measure like grip strength were truly so robust a health indicator, shouldn't lifespans be declining as and if grip strength was? Bohannon warns me, I would not interpret small declines in grip strength as an indicative of decreasing health. As he notes, you have to get pretty low in the statistical profile. In the lowest quartile or tertile or below the median of tested population before you start to get into increased mortality risk territory. Another problem is to fixate, like those 19th century explorers did, on the grip strength itself as a flawless indicator of health or anything else. After all, as the anthropologist Michael Gervin, who measured grip strength among the Tismene Amerindians of the Bolivian Amazon, among other groups, reminded me, women have lower grip strength than men, yet live longer and have lower mortality than men at most ages. He also advised me not to discount the motivational factor in the grip strength testing. Offering a prize to folks does increase their scores. Perhaps I was so intent on proving that I still had it against my millennial counterparts that I simply tried harder. Despite all these caveats, there is a larger narrative into which declining grip strength fits neatly. Daniel Lieberman, Harvard University paleoanthropologist and author of The Story of the Human Body, tells me that the overall strength and fitness are declining in the post-industrial world, and the epidemiological transition is increasing lifespan. But he noted those two trends are occurring for totally different reasons. We tend to fixate on the measure of a lifespan, but overlook morbidity. Here, Lieberman says that the data are unequivocal. As we are living longer, he says people are also suffering from longer periods of chronic illness as they age. People may be living longer due to their advances in pharmaceuticals or medical care, but as he asks, is he or she healthy? Health, he says, is not just life expectancy. Our weakening grips are, if nothing else, a corollary of an increasingly sick population. So by all means, go to the gym, not to turn back the evolutionary tide, but for your own well-being. Evolution, as Lieberman reminds us in The Story of the Human Body, is just about passing your genes, not ensuring a long and healthy life. From an evolutionary perspective, there is no such thing as optimal health. Creating that definition is up to you. This was really strange how this was titled. Raising the American Weakling. Did I like how that was titled? No, I didn't, but is there some evidence in the strength of people declining? Yeah, there is. And do people spend more time indoors? Yes, they do. Is it something evolutionary that's happening? Perhaps. But to call the human a weakling and stuff like that, and it is true, everything's becoming automated. And yeah. Evolution is just about passing your genes. Is that all it is? Just passing your genes? Not ensuring a long and healthy life? There's no such thing as optimal health? Yeah. It was a strange article, but you can look back on it. No more lug nut, no more four-way lug wrench, which I use four-way lug wrenches. I don't use impact drills because, you know, if you ain't got a strong wrist, that thing's going to twist your wrist off. I've got impact wrenches. But with this right here, even if you can't use your hands, I mean, you can put add a strong arm on there, a pipe, and get a lot more leverage. We're losing our basic skills, truly. When I was cutting up some branches in my mom's yard that the wind had knocked out, I was using pruners. And I noticed as I was like pulling them together and cutting a thicker branch, my left wrist was not as strong as it used to be. Because I too have quit using my hands as much as I used to. Yeah. So I'm going to go. That's a podcast. It's going to go on my podcast. It was just an article. And do you got to go back to swinging in the trees? I wonder how many people in this live stream can do a pull-up. I wonder how many people in this live stream can literally do a man's push-up. Are we as fit as we could be? No, we're not. I don't know how long it would take me to work out and do what I needed to do to even pull my own body weight up like that. Even though I may not have much body weight on me, but to just be able to do that again. It's like if you don't use it, you lose it. Yeah. Can you milk cows even though you drive cars? There's some people who can. There's the Amish, well, they don't drive cars, but they milk cows. There's still people who do go out and milk cows. We live in a future because you would not make it back in that. There's a lot of people who would not make it back then. If you had to live on farms, if you literally had to live, go back to the 1800s or something, if you had to live the life of an Amish person, I don't know if you would make it. The women work really, really hard, and so do the men. And you can all your stuff, all your food, and more or less. Yeah. So I am going to go, and thank you all for listening. And with that being said, hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello. From my heart to yours, love you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I might see you later. I really might. Yeah. Yes, that's right, Yankee Ward. Most poor people work really hard. There's still a lot of people who do, but we are immersed into technology, and robots are going to take over, more or less, a lot of the jobs, the factory jobs and things, and yeah. But if you don't want your strength to decline, start doing something to get that strength back. I am going to go, so with that being said, I already said it, I'm going to say it again. Hello, wherever you are in any part of the world. Hello. From my heart to yours, love you. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I'm wearing Ken's hat because my hair looks really wild, and I thought I'm going to put my stepdad's hat on my head because my hair looks a little wild. Yeah, thank you all. Polly Honey, if you're still on here, thank you. If you've done checked out, that's okay too, Polly Honey. Any other moderator, thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Good night.